Hello guys, welcome back. So in the last video we had created our score manager and we had pretty much defined all the functionalities that we want. Now in this video we are essentially going to create the UI for our game. So in order to do that, first of all we have to go to our UI elements folder, which is given inside your assets that I have provided. So just go to the UI elements folder, and over here you have to basically drag and drop all the UI elements inside your project. So just drag and drop it inside the textures folder. So it will just take a moment, and okay, for some reason didn't came up. So let me just try it once more. Let me just try drag and drop. Okay, I believe it is not. Okay, by mistake it came over here. So let me just select everything by shift select and then just drag and drop it inside my textures folder. So now all my assets, UI assets has been added. One more thing that I have, like for the displaying the score, I'm using a custom font. So let's just create a folder for our font, and let's type in fonts. So now that my folder has been created, again I'll go to the you given UI element, and over here in the fonts menu I'll choose this exo medium. This is basically a Google font, so it is free to use, and I will drag and drop it here. Now it came over here, and then I can drag it inside my fonts folder. So now that we have done importing our assets, let's create the UI itself. So right click on the main node, I mean the root node, click on add child, and from here what you can do is you can add a control node. So basically a control node is a node that defines the user interface. So all your images, background images, buttons, text, textures, whatever is there, uh, you have to do it inside the control node, and inside the control node, within that we get a lot of other nodes which are very helpful, and we will see just in some time. So let's add a control node and give it a name. So I'm going to name it as UI manager, since essentially this is going to manage all the UI for me. Now when you create a control node, you also have to define how much area this is going to take. So by default I want this control node to take all the screen space, so I will just click on this full rect button. So you will see that my borders are highlighted in the entire screen area. So this is basically telling you that this particular control node is going to take effect in all of the areas. So I can basically place all my UI elements anywhere within this screen now. So essentially the UI manager is the central, you can say, the node to have all the screens, and within this we are going to have basically three screens. One is the game menu screen, which is going to be the main game play screen. Whenever you launch your game, that is the main screen that is going to come up. Then the second screen is the score screen, where we are going to display the score of the player. And the third screen is the game over screen, where we have to show the game over panel as well as the restart button. So let's just do that. So I'll just right click add node, and here we are going to add one more control node. Give it a name. So I'm going to name this as the main screen. Now I'll press Ctrl D two times in order to duplicate it, and I can rename it to in-game screen. For this one I can press F2 to rename it, and this one I'll say game over screen. Now I'll shift select this, click over here and double click this button in order to make these screens also take up the entire space. So now that this is done, so it's time to finally start adding the elements. So I'll turn off the in-game screen and the game over screen, because essentially in the practical example also, there is only one screen that is going to be active at a time. So now we are defining the main game screen, add a child node, then search for the texture rect. So this is a basically a subclass of the control node that you can see from here, and it basically through this particular node we can add an image to our UI. So here we are going to have the logo of our game, so I'll just name it as logo. Then from my textures, I'll drag and drop my logo over here. So now you can see this is coming over here nicely. Now I have to make this in the center. So how can I do that? I can basically go to this preset, anchor preset, and over here I can select this middle one, and then I have to like if I hit play button right now, you'll see that it is coming right over here, but I want somewhat gap from the vertical space. So what I can do is I'll keep this logo node selected, and I will come to the layout, and from here I'll go to the transform, and from here in the position I'll give the y offset. So let's give it an offset of around let's say 15, and press Ctrl S, hit play, and now my logo is coming correctly, so that's fine there. Now it's time to add the button. So I'll go to the main screen, click add child, and for the button we are going to add a texture button. Okay, since we are going to emulate the button and we do have the textures for that button, so the name would be play underscore button. Just try to give it the descriptive name, because later on it helps us debug things properly. Now for the button, I'll just select this button, and from this textures I can define all the textures. So just drag and drop play normal in the normal area, and then play button pressed in the pressed area, then drag play button pressed in the hover area also, and drag in the focused area as well. Now that we have defined all our textures, it's time to place our button, and we want the button to be placed in the bottom center. So let's just go to the preset and click on this area over here. Now I'll press play, and now you can see my button is there, but again I want somewhat space from the bottom of the screen. So I will go to the layout, and from here I'll go to the transform, and in this y, see we have 536, that is the position that is defined. So let's say if I want to uh, drag it, I mean if I want this button to be somewhat little bit upwards, so I what I can do is I can calculate some values, and I can make it like 536 to 526. So I basically reduced 10 pixels from it, and let's say if I reduce let's say 20 pixels from it, you will see the play button is going up. But there is also one convenient way that Godot has provided us, and what we can do is 536 and minus, I can write an expression, so whatever value that I want to reduce, I can do that. So let's say I want to reduce 25 pixels from it. I'll press enter, and automatically the value will get calculated and updated. So it's a very handy feature. So now you will see that my button is working. So now just please ignore the quality of the assets, because I have made it myself, and I am not very good at designing the assets. So there is one problem that I'm facing, and that is the I'm not able to actually realize that this is a button, even though the animation is working okay. So that is happening because my cursor is not changing to a pointer cursor to make it more feel like a button. So what we can do here, in the settings of my button selected, I will go to the let's say go to the mouse, and from here default cursor. So this one I can select the pointing hand. I'll press Ctrl S and hit on save again. And now my problem is now solved. So this is it for the main menu. Now let us design the in-game screen menu. So I will just turn off the main screen. I'll turn on the in-game screen, and here I just want to show the score. So I can add a child node, and here I'll add a label. So a label is nothing but a text field. So here I'll just say score text. Sorry. Okay. Now here, let me just type in a default score text as of now. So score text, again, I'm going to use a custom font for this. So changing the font is really easy. So what we have to do is click on the theme overrides, and from here, just expand the fonts. And from here I'll just expand this font over here and drag and drop it like this. So instantly my font is changed. Now I want to change the style, so I'll expand the font size, and from here I can just drag to adjust my font. So I feel like 35 pixel is fine. Now I'll go to the layout again, and from here I'll go to the transform, and I'll just give some offset. So let me just set an offset of, let's say, 15 pixels from the X and 10 pixels from the Y. Just hit on play, and just to check, and yes, the score text is coming fine. The place is, I'm happy with that. So our in-game screen is now designed. So let's turn it off again and turn on the game over screen. So now we are going to design that, add a child node, and again from here add a texture rect because we want to show the game over panel. So we'll say game over panel, and in the textures I will drag and drop the game over panel like this. Now it is coming on the top. We have to make it on the center. So in the anchor preset, I will make sure to select this box. So it will make sure that this image expands in the center, and it maintains its aspect ratio as well. Now, one last thing we have to add, that is the restart button. So I'll use the texture button here again, and just rename this to, sorry, rename this to restart button. Okay. Let me just go to here. Okay, underscore is there. So it's a good practice to, just have a common standard of defining the names, so it will be easy later to debug things. So now expand the textures, and just like what we had done with the play button, so same thing we are going to do over here. I will just make it like this, and then for the position we want it in the bottom center. So I'll go here, and now going back to the layout transform. Here let me just give y a value of 25 to make it somewhat space from the bottom. I'll hit play to check it, and the yeah, this screen also looks good. Only thing is I have to go to the mouse, and here I have to change this to pointing hand just to make sure that this is a restart button. So yeah, so now my screens are defined. So let's just go ahead and program it so that our screen responds to whatever actions that we do. So in the UI manager node, that is the node, the root node for our UI screen. So I'll right click, I'll attach a script. I'll click here, and let's just save it in the scripts directory. And UI manager, the script name is fine for me. So over here, what I will do, see, as of now, all my three screens are off. Okay. So in the ready function, I want my main screen to be activated as this is the default main menu screen. So let's just do that and test it out. So in the ready function, I want to may activate my main screen. So I'll drag this like this, and then I have to set this visibility. So I will change its visible property to true, and let's see what happens. And right away you will see the main screen is now visible since it is I have turned this on. Now I will create two functions. One is the start game function and one is the game over function, where they will basically turn off the remaining screens and turn on the required screens. So let's create a function for start game. So I'll say start game, and for this one I want to turn off the main screen. So I'll change its visibility to false, and then the in-game screen I'll drag it here and turn its visibility to true. Now exactly when this function is going to be called, so this function is going to be called when I click play on my main screen, right? So I will expand this main screen. I'll go to my button, I'll go to the node, and you will see this is the pressed function, that is event signal, sorry, that will be fired whenever the button is pressed. So I'll just double click that, I'll select my UI manager and I'll hit on connect. So my button is now connected, and here I will call this start game function, because whenever the button is clicked I want this function to get executed so that my main screen is gets hidden and the in-game screen gets visible. So let's just check that once, and I click, and yes, this is working fine. So this is working fine. Now I will just create one more function called game over, or else let's say show game over screen, sorry. And here I will basically turn off this visibility of the in-game screen. So I will do like this, and for the game over screen, let's just define it here, define its visibility and make it true. Okay, so this is the screen which will be showed. uh, Show game over panel. This is to process the play button pressed, and this basically show the in-game screen. Actually, let's rename this to show in-game screen, and I'll just copy that, and over here, since we have changed the name, I will change it like this, and yeah, this is pretty much done. Here show the main menu screen as default. So I've added just one line of comments in order to make all these functions much more definitive, like what they are doing. So even if after some time if I visit and see these functions, I'll be able to get an idea that what these functions are doing actually. So now my play button is working and in-game screen is working. Now how do I connect my game over screen? So we can do this simply within this main game uh, script. If you remember, we are setting this is player alive to false, and right over here we can drag, oh, sorry, what we can do is we can drag the UI manager node and dot show game over screen. This function we can call. So let us just now click over here, and yes, the all these screens are working. So basically what is happening is, if I just do like this, so game over is coming, and okay, this might seems a little bit confusing, but we'll clear this now. So what essentially is happening is, whenever I'm hitting on play, the ball is falling down even before we start the game. So we don't, obviously we don't want that. We want the ball to start falling down only when we hit on the play button. So how do we do that? So we can do it very easily in the start function. So in the ready function, basically inside our player controller, we would want the gravity to be disabled. Okay, so we can set the gravity scale to 0 in this one. So if I hit play now, so you'll see my ball is now standing still, and if I hit play, then I want my gravity scale to be whatever value that it was. So what we can do is, we can create a variable called initial gravity scale, and we can give it a value, a type of float. So initially what we can do is, we can have the initial gravity scale equal to gravity scale. So whatever gravity scale that is there, it will be stored inside that. Then we can go ahead and change the gravity scale to 0, and then we have to make a function inside this, so as this will process whenever the player hits the play button. Okay, so how do we do that? Just simply define a new function over here, func, and start let's say start game, and here we want the gravity scale to the value of whatever the initial gravity scale was. So how do we call this? Simply by going inside the UI manager, and the show in-game screen, this function. Here we can just call this ball, and oops, it's okay, it won't come like that. So what we can do is, we can go to the main screen, and from here we can go to the UI manager, and from this one we can call in the ball, and now we will try to call that function. So start game, so we'll hit on play. Now our ball is there in the center. We hit on the play button, and now our ball has started falling, so our game is working fine. So one last thing we have to do is, we have to count update the count of this score right from here. So again, making sure that we are in the main tab, we are going to the score manager script by clicking over here, and here we are printing the player score. So just remove this one, and just drag and drop the in-game score text over here, and say dot text is equals to score and plus str of the players score. So essentially, let me just make it a big on a bigger screen. So essentially what we are doing is, we are referencing the score text, and we are changing its text property to score, and then concatenating this player score over here. So let me just hit play, and now our main screen is there. We hit on play button, and right away you see that my score is increasing, but there is a problem. So if you notice here, if when I'm like right now I'm not doing anything, and when I'm hitting on play, the score is right away starting from 5, 6, 7. So why is this happening is because my timer is running irrespective of checking whether the player has started playing the game or not. So this is what we have to change. So what we can do is, going over to my score manager here I can click on this button in order to get inside my score manager uh, component. And in the score timer, I'll go to the inspector and I'll turn off this auto start, because now we want to start this score calculation only when the player hits on that play button. Okay, so now how we can do this is by going to the main menu. Okay, so in the score manager, first of all, let us define a function that is going to turn on the timer. Okay, so func turn on score timer, or let's say start score calculations. Okay, like this. And over here we'll reference the score timer and we'll say start. So this is a function to start the timer. So rest of the configuration remains same, only this function we have to call. So I will just copy that. Now going to my UI manager where I am showing the in-game screen. So here I will reference that thing. So how do I do that? I can do it simply by referencing to my score manager and dot and just calling out the function. So now let's just hit on play, and right now everything looks fine. I hit play and now you can see that my score is getting counted. And if I leave it, so the game over screen is coming. So the last thing that we have to do now is basically bind the restart button. So let's just do that as well. So what we can do is going over to the restart button, coming over to the node and just connecting the pressed thing to my UI manager. And here I'm going to define restart the game. And so inside my restart game function, I'm going to call get tree. So this is going to get the root node, and here I'm going to just do a function called reload current scene. So this function basically reloads the current scene. So in this one we have the main scene as our only scene, so it is very handy to reload the scene itself. So let's test that. I click on play. I am trying to keep my ball in the screen. Score is getting incremented, and if I do a game over, I can restart it again back and I can hit play and play like normal game. So this completes the loop and this completes our game as well. So this was it for a basic 3D game. So in this one we got covered all of the basic aspects of the game, the architecture, the planning, the area, the how the node has to be configured. Now there is one final thing left, which is basically adding a sound that we are going to see in the next one. So see you in the next video.